Welcome back to the absolute most professional StarCraft 2 with a 3-time world champion in the red, the finisher. It's Serral. Alongside his teammate from Team Liquid, we have Elazer. But standing in their way, Demour, the wall. It's showtime. Alongside his Protoss counterpart in the blue, we have Trigger. In a best of 5, 2 versus 2 showdown as part of the largest 2v2 tournament in StarCraft 2 history. uThermal putting $15,000 on the line to get the absolute best of the best. So before we get started, it'd be awesome if you can check out uThermal, smash that like button, and maybe even subscribe. Convince the algorithm you like something a little bit different, maybe a little bit better. And Jimmy, what are we at? 1,690 likes on this video, on this cast, and I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways because I don't know what else I'd do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully you've had a good day so far. And hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. I am so excited to be disappointed by this match. I have such high expectations. They are incredibly unrealistic. 2 versus 2 is criminally underutilized. Almost none of these players play it on a regular basis if they're not content creators. Once again, looking over at uThermal. But so far have shown incredible games in this tournament. Now here's the thing. They didn't know they would be on the same team in the playoffs. The kind of wrinkle of the tournament was the randomized teammates in the group stage. And based on your performance, you get matched up with someone who did similar in the other group. It just so happened we got 2 Zergs and 2 Protoss facing off here. But on top of that, Showtime is the best punching bag in StarCraft 2. I'm sorry, Showtime, but you don't get nicknamed the Wall because of your aggressive cheeses or your ability to hit sharp timing attacks. No, you're nicknamed the Wall because people keep breaking their fists trying to break through your defenses. As a Protoss player, you got a lot of tools in order to play that defensive style, but nobody does it better than Showtime. And he's been on the receiving end, and he's dealt it out too, but mostly on the receiving end of some of the most dramatic games and eventual defeats in StarCraft 2 history, especially with Serral versus Showtime. So, double the players, exponentially more, 800 supply limit, and, well, the extra details of the fact we're playing 2 versus 2. The players can share control. They can trade resources after about 7 minutes is the rule we have it at. And definitely sharing control already. Both players building an Adept, clearly being controlled by one of them. It looks like Showtime's actually taken over. So a bit of Archon mode to start for our Protoss. A little harder to pull off with Zerg, I think. Especially with how the Zerg economy works. But all the details here, both the intricacies, the positives and negatives, are going to be a little bit different because both players are the same race. That means the creep is not going to get in the way because creep is creep. It doesn't discriminate. Whether you're on creep or not, that's all the queens care about. It doesn't matter who laid the tumor or built the hatchery. Friend or enemy or acquaintance? Okay, colleague. Colleague? All right. I don't... Sorry. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. On the other side of things, Protoss, shield batteries can shield your teammates. You can't warp in at your teammates' pylons, which would be maybe an extension of that sort of mechanic. But you can't chrono boost your teammates' buildings. I do wish 2v2 at some point had gotten its own sort of flavor that wasn't 1v1 with 2 players. But it is what it is, and it's still very good. And we'll see. Now that these players have played for a couple weeks of matches, not the whole week, but like weekends, just to be clear, what they come up with, especially in the Uber Protoss versus Uber Zerg, if you would. First Oracle coming in. 2 Oracles to start. Elazer on the outer base, but getting the gold. Usually, the Zerg player is the bodyguard for their teammate. And it seems like Elazer is going to be the bodyguard for Serral here. Makes a lot of sense. 35 to 58 drones. Meanwhile, the Protoss players both going for a pretty macro-oriented play with 40-something workers themselves, with the Zerglings surrounding outside the third base. War Prism headed out. Another side effect of playing 2v2 instead of using the sanitized 1v1 tournament stuff is we actually get to see the skins. Wow. Speaking of missed opportunities, Elazer actually just broke through onto Showtime's Nexus. He's bringing the Oracles back home to defend. The hatchery itself will be assaulted by the Stalkers. The Zerglings, the door's wide open, but the Oracles, well, they're going to have to chase down the Lings, which is certainly not what they want to be doing right now. The Stalkers, they do have Blink completed, no other upgrades, but right now there's not much to contest them. The Zerglings still giving them the runaround in the main. Now Trigger, with his Stalkers at the front, going to be distracted at the back, has to warp in some Stalkers back at home because these Zerglings are just running around. Unfortunately, between two Protoss, there's still no ability to build doors. One Queen assassinated. Spinecrawler going to be taken out next. 2 volleys, Blinks back, Stasis from Showtime. 4 Oracles overhead. No Moracles in production, but still a deplorable situation for the Zergs as the Hydra's behind. Triggers one of the Stasis. But with Hydras and Queens holding for now the Stalkers, still an existential threat. The Hydras are very important. Serral's Hydras and Elazer Zerglings. It doesn't look like they're sharing control right now, so they just got to coordinate whether they're attacking forward. The Hydra's starting to be picked off. You desperately need the Zerglings in front of things. Both Stalkers and Hydras are not known for their stability, but instead their ability to turn a fight from bad to worse for your opponent if they get into an uncomfortable spot. The Hydra count is growing dramatically. 2 infestation pits in production. Templar Archives for Showtime has been macroing like a fiend back at home. 70 probes. Just using his Oracles to add on the Stasis and throwing down some Revelation. Stalkers trading fire. Elazer sneaking by with some Zerglings. That single Changeling in the center. Spotted the Stasis. Serral does not have Hydra speed done yet. Gonna take out... Ooh. The door! Trigger warps in time. Just barely. The Stalker's moving forward. Still fighting some... There's 3 Blinks back with some of the bruised ones. Between 2 Protoss, there's still no ability to repair or heal those Stalkers. The same weaknesses compounded, but covering for them with those Oracles. Zerglings still sneaking by. Might be able to pick off a few more probes. The Stalkers keeping pressure on. Serral at 138 supply. Elazer only at 80. So the bodyguard Elazer so far doing a great job of keeping things under control so Serral can macro up behind. In fact, Elazer's rushing towards Hive now while Serral is still stuck on Lairtech, getting Zergling speed of his own. Stasis catches a couple Hydras. Got to be careful with the other one. 3 more Hydras caught by the Stalkers in full retreat now. The Zerglings running around again. The Rock's out in front of everything. Might be able to blink up to the high ground, but going to cost him just a few more Stalkers on the way out. Yanks in another one, but the Zerglings looking for the grab. Storm is not quite done for Showtime. He desperately needs some units here. The Zerg are coming, and this Nexus is not going to happen. Trying to hold the door for now. The Templar finally warped in. Zerglings for Elazer, Hydras for Serral. Adding in some Zerglings of his own. Storm is completed for Showtime. The Stalkers can no longer take these trades. +1 Hydras can go toe-to-toe, even though they don't have any with the Stalkers. Toe's well known as a major weakness, except on my Dronely fans. Like and subscribe. A few Predator drones with Serral. 166, but Showtime up to 150 supply. He's used Trigger as a buffer, so that way he could get all his tech out. Showtime is sitting on +1 attack. He's got multi-robo production of Immortals. The conga line of Hydras just kind of slinking back across the map. The Zerglings are fighting heads up. The Storm's on top of the Stalkers. They'll expect some of us in the wreckage, brothers. I don't... Elazer gonna try to take the center base again. It's going to be canceled. Yet again, like a StarCraft ghost game. Stalkers moving forward. The Immortals behind. And both parts of a mid-game Protoss composition between the 2 players together. Serral's at 180 supply, building a few lurkers. Storm's forward. There is an observer. I think there's still some Oracles somewhere. Storm's on top of the lurkers. A couple going to be obliterated by the front line of the Protoss. Elazer trying to sneak in from the back, not finding an angle so far. The Protoss acutely aware of it. Trigger moving forward, has an Immortal of his own. I believe that... Are they still sharing control? You can tell by the little outline underneath who's actually controlling the units. Usually that's not very relevant, but something to look out for here in team games, especially if it seems surprisingly synchronized. So far, neither team able to find real damage. Showtime already has a 4th base. Serral has 5 bases and 80 drones, and Elazer is going to be taking the brunt of it. Hatchery didn't get the last volley. Tries to get away. Immortal slips into the prism. The Stalkers are caught between a rock and a hard place. Meanwhile, though, Warp Prism in the main base. Showtime cutting through some of the Hydras. Not much on defense, but the charge lots seem to be a bit pacifist for now. Oracle's coming up. Needs the Revelation, but doesn't need Hydra Spines directly to the core of the Oracles. Knocks one out of the sky, but going to be able to keep tabs on the Lurkers. Fleet Beacon back at home for Showtime. Clearly the carry here. Trigger and Elazer buffering for their teammates so they can get those late-game unit compositions. Elazer down under 50 workers, Trigger at 50 probes. Showtime and Serral both around 80 workers. But so far, the Zergs have mostly expanded to their side of the map. Honestly, not a bad set of bases for the Protoss as well. But the Storms to ward it away. This is when, as the armies get more and more dangerous, the fights start to split. At least at the highest level. You just can't jam everything down a single ramp. Alright, you gotta spread things out, which is just a good practice in general. As the choke points get more and more dramatic, you gotta find alternative angles. The gold base has been a struggle for both sides. The probe gonna be denied before it even starts. Zerglings on top of the Zealots, but the Zealots more than a match. Lurkers down the center. Serral eviscerating some of Trigger's reinforcing units. Showtime near maxed out. Serral already there. 3 Tempests in production simultaneously. Elazer and Trigger struggling to get over 100 supply. The carries are holding. The Storms! Where are they? He loses 3-4 pretty much every single Templar. The Storms are good, but the Hydras are better, and Trigger too late on the draw. Serral jumps the Templar, gets the most important part of the unit composition, and Trigger tries to save the day, but going to be caught in turn. Becomes the liability. Showtime has Storms on the high ground. Will coat the ramp with some cataclysmic storms. But Serral's still pushing through. He has Lurker range and adaptive talents to burrow them down so quickly. Another base knocked down. The Immortals, the Charge Lot, the Archons, and the Templar behind are enough to keep the Lurkers at bay, but it's going to require the Tempest to drive them back. Serral, 81 drones. He's banking money in 2v2 at this level, which is, you know, check that one off your bingo card, getting the 200 supply at all. A mothership is on the way for Showtime. The Zealots once again forming a vanguard against the Zerglings. Serral trying to expand to the base Elazer just took. Typical. Meanwhile, Storms on top of the Lurkers. The Zergling Storms on Showtime's Immortals. The Tempest will drive the Lurkers back. Serral has already refilled by the time that fight concluded. Some might argue it's just begun. 50 more Zerglings on the way for Elazer. That's all he can afford. He's still got 100 supply. Trigger as well. The Tempest, though, are there any Corruptors? Is there a Spire? Serral does have a Spire with Flyer Attack on the way. The Lurkers are getting less and less done as Showtime continues to expand throughout the map. Trigger doing a good job buffering for him. Elazer really struggling. He's pretty much stuck on Zerglings. Lunges away. There's no Storms with the army. The Tempests are shelling from afar. We'll be able to knock out several Lurkers, but Elazer streaming in with the Zerglings. He has +3/+1. He's a Zergling player, all right? He's a role player here, if you would. As the Zerglings are pretty much fully upgraded for what they're trying to do right now, and will absolutely shred the Nexus and all its defenders. He might not have much supply, but it's the most efficient supply. The Zerglings, the Adrenalings, able to cut in where Serral could not with the Lurkers, and actually slow down. They desperately needed that. The same principles apply. You can't let the Death Ball get close. You can't let them just build up a bank with infinite storm. It is a recipe for utter disaster, and nobody knows that better than Serral. So Elazer being sent out like an attack dog with a bunch of attack dogs in order to keep Showtime especially, but the Protoss down while he builds up back at home. Even an Ultralus Cavern is on the way for Elazer, which seems to fit the theme of units he's built so far. I do love how our support players, our buffer players, I guess more like tanks than supports here, are both at 120 supply, almost dead even, and now killing so many probes. Serral hits the left side. He's gonna finish what he started, but the main base, a mothership recall. The hive is under fire. The tech tree could be chopped off at the stump. But Serral and Elazer just knocked out 2 outlying bases. They may lose the main. but they just denied most of the economy. Storms across the entire front line, which is now the main base of the Zerg. The Ultralisk Cavern will be taken down the moment it finishes. The mothership, there's still an opportunity to recall out. Active cloaking. It seems like the Zergs are giving them the opportunity to get out while they still can. But Showtime not taking them up on that. Elazer about to lose his hive. The lurkers moving forward. The probes regretting a lot of things in life, but not for much longer. Eviscerated. Another set of armies taking out the bases to the south. But Serral and Elazer still have that eastern front. Elazer once again on the chopping block. Loses multiple bases, loses his hive. Does he still have a spawning pool? That's all he needs. He's got 3-1 upgrades with Adrenalings. And Serral still has 4K, 2K in the bank. He can send Elazer money, but Elazer right now is struggling to spend it. He doesn't have enough hatcheries to produce larvae, but he does have a couple hundred Zerglings. Okay, well, he had a couple hundred. He's killing Archons with Zerglings. Recalls back, which is just... Somehow the Zerglings are actually ripping through them. Zerglings countering Archons. The door isn't. Serral still to the north. The Protoss supply is dipping. Elazer and Trigger both back at double digits. But Showtime, the Death Ball, the Tempest overhead. 9 Tempest, 5 Immortals. That is... The Death Ball has fully come together. Serral has to deal with it somehow. Elazer still sending constant streams of Zerglings across the map. But the units are here now, and they must be dealt with. Now this is an important base to defend. Oh, Brenda, no! Well, nobody else is here. I don't... Serral's just giving up the northern base. Zerglings at the 9 o'clock. The Lurkers intercepting some of the ground army out of Trigger. Elazer using the last few of the Zerglings to try to hold it down. Knocks out another observer. And again, almost uses the Changelings to box him in. And both sides suffering dramatic losses, but Serral still has plenty. Technically, Elazer also has plenty in the bank. Again, he's really just suffering from a severe lack of hatcheries. The Zerglings. The APMs. 2,000 APM in this match right now. The Death Ball still wandering by, but with 2 Zergs slipping through either side. It's getting harder and harder to pin them down. Mothership recall is available. I think Nexus recall is as well. It can reposition. But the Hydra is just pin cushioning a Nexus. No reaction in time. Trigger moving up with whatever he has left. Elazer and Trigger at 80 supply apiece. The carries at 200. The frontliners so far really suffering dramatic losses. Though, Serral actually losing more resources. Of course, he mined way more as well. Oh, that's that. The storms washing across. Can Serral beat this idealized Death Ball with the army he has, even with this much in the bank? The Corruptors. A full Congress of Corruptors here, but still not able to close in because of a well-placed Time Warp. The Archons with overwhelming power. The Zerglings able to rip apart the remaining Archons at the 9 o'clock. The damage is still being dealt throughout the map, but the economies are almost entirely gutted. An economic crash is about to happen. The minerals for Serral, he has 1 base, 1.5 bases mining. Showtime has about half a base. I mean, you could trade resources with your teammates, but the total bank between the teams, Serral, the Sandpaper Zerg, is whittling down very quickly. More Archons have died. How many Archons has Trigger lost? 15. And another couple are stumbling over a Lego away from death. But the Mothership and the Tempest, and there's still enough Templar underneath to make this army anything but temporary. The drones will be slaughtered. Shields will be shattered. Motherships will be broken. But will it be a red day? A storm day? And who will survive on the victory screen? Somehow it's still unclear, because even though Showtime supply is so low, it's still the Golden Armada. It's still the Tempest and the Templar with the Mothership overhead. Serral's clearly trying to arc out and close in. He doesn't have that much in the bank. Time Warp Time Warp is off cooldown, uses it on the Lurkers. Mothership's taken out, Lurkers closing in, Elazer coming around with the Zerglings as well. Trigger nowhere to be seen, his army's out to the south. Recalls out, will cost him 2 or 3 more Tempests. The Templar will die as well. But the economy, Serral still with 175 supply. Everyone else in double digits. The Protoss have been broken. But are they done yet? What does Serral have left? 43 Hydralisks. I think they've done it. They still have to go up a ramp into Archons and Storm. Which, uphill both ways. There's still some mining. Elazer, the real hero here, keeping the Protoss busy, constantly pressuring the economy to the point that Serral is able to finish it off. Nidus is, you can't go through teammates Nidus. That's another one that's disappointing, but true. Maybe if you share control? No, I don't think so. The Hydra's taking down the base to the center. More. Trigger actually ahead on supply. Showtime has 3 Tempests, 5 Templar, so about the most valuable 60 supply you could ever have. But Serral still has so many Hydras. The Archons overhead. At this point, just share control, right? Working on the infrastructure. Serral's mining again for now. The hatchery's being targeted by the few charge lots left over. Archon, this base is just never gonna happen. We don't have the... Elazer's lost 819 Zerglings in 21 minutes. And almost nothing else. Because he's built almost nothing else. For the low price of 1,000 Zerglings, he's bought Serral time. And is it time to show Showtime that it's time to tap out? Will he pull the trigger on the final attack? Or will Trigger be able to pull himself out of this situation? It's unclear. As the storm's closing in, this is actually a terrible angle for the Hydras. They lunge away. And Showtime realized, I don't think there's a single storm on those. Serral not recognizing the energy there. There's a lot going on. The Corruptors will take down the base down the center. A Nidus, I think that's an escape Nidus. They're not going to make it out. But the Zerglings catch the Templar. Energy recharge to box out. Another storm on the Hydras. A final merge. He might take it out and be able to slip away. Meanwhile, Serral, but a lot of the Hydras are caught in the middle of the map, losing so many of the Hydralisks. But what's left for the Protoss? Warping in just a few more Zealots. 7 Archons. 7 Archons. 7 Archons can win the game on their own. There's 17 Hydras, 18 drones left. Somehow, this is all that's left. There's 1 Lurker. That is the most important Lurker of all time. There's still an Observer overhead. The Hydra's on creep. Lunges forward, chases down another one. So many Archons. The Corruptors sniping off next side. Get over here! The double tap on the Archons. The first Viper yanks in 2 of them. Serral at 100 supply. Everyone else. Oh, but there's 3 Archons, 3 Tempests. But Serral and Elazer, well, Elazer has less drones than he started with, but they're mining again. The next side taken down. Elazer, desperately, he has single-digit Zerglings. They've been so valuable. Knocks out another Tempest. 1 remains. The Archons through the tiniest choke point. G! The Zerg prevail. What a game. 900 Zerglings, 34 Archons, hundreds of Zealots and Hydras. A total of nearly 200,000, well, 150, 180,000 resources lost. 150. Very many resources lost. Serral and Elazer survive. And will go up 1-0. Both players, the role playing there. The frontliners and the carries. So clear and obviously worked out beforehand, but Elazer throwing every Zergling to buy time and space. And eventually started slipping through and getting the damage done. And then Serral coming in with his Honestly, Serral able to do more micro than we're usually able to see from him, as so much of the time it goes understated because he has to do so much else. But he's actually able to focus a little on the Hydra micro. And obviously, like, we focus, at least personally, as possibly the biggest, most unbiased Serral fanboy on Serral's macros, decision-making. But it's not like his micro is bad. In fact, it's world-class. It's arguably the best. No, it's definitely the best. What am I saying? It's just, it looks so clear and so obvious, it almost doesn't feel like micro. Micro feels like stutter stepping and dodging shots, but Serral queues up so much stuff like Vipers and Lurkers before the fight that it's happening as the fight happens. So it feels inevitable as opposed to impressive. But I think that game was one of the first times we actually get to see Serral like putting on his micro overalls and taking off his macro cap and strapping in his team game belt as the heavyweight champion of Finland. All right, that belt providing +4 strength and I think +4 stamina as well. Made out of a nice shiny leather. You can smell it. Moving on. Both Protoss sending out probes to block. The double block. Wow. Okay, we're going to have to follow that up somehow. So, while we have an early game, thank you again to uThermal for putting on the match. We need 30 seconds. Elazer just needs a quick cooldown. Fun fact, Serral and Trigger are both on Team Basilisk. Clearly not on the same team here, but that extra little intrigue. So technically a team kill in this match, one way or another. Wow. I do wish, now, if I had a wish list, it would be very long, more like a manifesto for the game, but moving on. It would be things like almost co-op level abilities. And part of the reason I love supporting this tournament is not just obviously the incredible games and the initiative, is that in 2v2, players and tournaments are not so set in their ways. We have an opportunity, maybe, because this tournament already changes the game. Usually you can trade resources at around 4 minutes. This raises it to 7 minutes, because otherwise Protoss players would just get fed Vespene gas and go Mass Phoenix and win every game. Or even if they don't win every game, it'd just be boring because everybody chose to do that strategy. And here's the thing. I think we can have modes that aren't just who can do the sweatiest build 2 seconds faster, 2% better. We can have new strategies, new maps, new balance even. Like if we can change the trading time, maybe we can change other things. Not in 1v1, okay, but... Now, speaking of change, none of that is happening in the Protoss base. Both Protoss are going Glaive Adepts. 50 shades with Glaives, but in possibly the literal sense, as I assume one of the players is going to be micro... Actually doing an Archon mode Glaive Adepts. They're both going mass Glaive Adepts. I love it. I mean... And it's already hard enough to deal with Adepts in 1v1 when you're prepared. So, dealing with 2 players of mass Adepts, especially if you're not able to coordinate your defenses, this could spell disaster for the Zerg. And I have to know this is a threat. Serral's about to finish a Roach one. This is still very early. 36 and 34 workers. Showtime's still building workers, so I think he's going to be the player who, if they need to macro it out, is focused on it. We already saw who's the front line and who's the carry. I like front line much better than support. Or, because it's not support. It's literally, get down, Mr. World Champion. Imagine being Serral's teammate. A lot of pressure on Elazer, who also is a top-tier player, but there's tears. There's Serral, and there's everyone crying after they lose to him. Wow! That is 24 Adepts right there at less than 5 minutes. They just killed the hatchery. Wow, that is disgusting. Throwing mad shade right now. And hello, this is private property by order of the hatchery owners. How do they have so many adepts? Brenda, there are 2 of them. Who are you? Lucille, why are you orange? The adepts in the main. Trigger splitting off a few of them with his warp prism. Now, there are roaches on the way. This does need to get a lot of damage done. So far, middling success. It looks bad. They killed a hatchery. But the roach count is building up. The counterattack force is building up. And both players went for a ground army. There is not a Stargate. There is not a Templar Archives. There's not even a Dark Shrine. So the counter swing is going to be the most important part of this game. The Adepts are slowly, painfully slowly, but surely getting cleaned up. And eventually the Zerg will be coming across the map. Immortal's already in production though. Neither Protoss player reaching for another level of tech, but instead just using the robo that they already have. The warp prism is still going. It doesn't stop. They just keep going. All right. The Zerg's adepting as best they can, but oh my. And the drop. Serral's at 90 supply, but Elazer the punching bag this time around. The double prisms just dancing around, refracting all the issues. That makes sense. Science. All right. So now what? I guess we gotta ask ourselves that eternal caster question. Have you liked and subscribed? And at what cost? As Immortals and plenty of Adepts back at home. We've gotten already past the point where the roaches are going to be the choice. All right. The queens will continue to amble up and try to deal with the prisms, but the Zergs have to either commit all the way to like a Roach Bane all-in or tech up further. They might not know that. That might not be clear, as it doesn't necessarily become obvious. As Zerglings will see the armies on the ground, but as Zerg, you don't have quite as much vision of what's going on in the base. I think, yeah, they haven't really looked anytime lately. Not since before the all-in. Serral's at 46 drones, Elazer's at 32. Both Protoss in the 40s. Actually moving out again. Even more Adepts. There are over 40 Adepts on the map right now. A few of them in the prisms, the rest in a laser. Gotta get his hatcheries beat up again. The order of the day. I think very intentional from Team Zerg, but Immortals drops the force fields across the board and breaking them down, but the Adept shading out. Baneling's quite good, but kind of getting jammed up behind the roaches. A bunch of Adepts warped into the main. A laser scrambling to keep some semblance of economy intact. There's 4 or 5 Immortals. Showtime is microing at the front. Trigger is microing at the back. All right, the teamwork now. Corrosive Bile's gonna land. Actually hitting a big chunk of things. Still has enough energy for a few force fields. Not a huge impact usually, but could cut off the fight. Not like that. Meanwhile, more Adept shades. A laser struggling so hard right now. But Serral's up to 155 supply. It is Roach Ravager, which is the weakest 155 supply you can have, but still far outstripping either Protoss individually. The Immortal Army. Oh, the Overlord. Overlord spots and gets tickled to death by the very limited anti-air. Unfortunately, no way to exploit that, as mutas are a distant dream. Serral technically has a lair. A laser is also in the game. Elazer has 31 drones, 25 Zerglings. He's also got those few Banelings trickled in. The Immortals and the Sentries. The rocks are there. This choke point is just way too much. A couple Zerglings on the other side might be able to actually deny a Nexus. Get through the shields. He does have +1 attack on the Lings as well. The Zergs have survived for now. But they're really, at this point, they're mostly relying on a big mistake out of Team Protoss to break through. This army with decent force fields, yeah, I can just choke it off to the side. The Adepts are really kind of past their expiration date almost. Still warping them in as a buffer, but they're pretty good against the Zerglings as well. And again, the Immortals cut out in front. You can't use the Warp Prism to micro your teammates' Immortals away. So that's going to be a little awkward for Showtime. There's Storm on the way for Trigger, though. Serral at 160 supply, 100 past that of Elazer, who's once again reduced to the Zerglings. It's going to be one big all-in. They're going to have one shot, one opportunity, if you can call it that. Will they capture it? Or will it slip through? Oh. Serral's getting Baneling speed and Circling speed at the same time. Not usually a great sign. An Archon drop coming in. Elazer still just dealing with all this. Scouting Immortal, classic. It's the Bane all-in. Serral's at 44 drones. It needs to win the game. Well, at least do critical damage. The Banelings are rolling. Can break through with Corrosive Bile. Storm is done. Trigger is ready. And the Storms land. And the attack is pretty much stopped before it can start. Coming in from the back. Oh, wait. A couple Immortals targeted down. Corrosive Bile gonna knock those force fields down and open up the attack path again. Serral still trying to break through. That Banelings could get a lot done. We've already seen the Corrosive Biles kind of spew out all over. Archon drop, keeping things busy. Trigger again. Trigger and Elazer, kind of the B-plot of the game now. Still very important for both of them to at least be a threat, but neither of them with the economy or the army supply to be as dramatically so. Trigger's just handing his Templar to Showtime to micro, which makes sense. He's microing his Archon drop at the back. Showtime himself going for the Templar Archives because of the inconsistencies of using warp prisms and such. Definitely making it more difficult. You can't warp in his Templar. He still has to do it. But if you share control, can you warp in from his warp gates? I think only if he leaves the game, which you're not allowed to do here. Well, I'm not sure the rules on that, but it'd be widely considered a dick move. Another Scouting Immortal. Serral, a cheeky donation from his teammate. Little things like that can add up. So far, they're going to need a lot more, ideally multiplying, but Elazer has clawed his way back to 112 supply. Now has 100 Zerglings. Once again, Zergling man. Serral with some Lings as well, but here comes... He builds the wall of Protoss. Mr. Zergachev, tear it down. The Corrosive Bile's trying to come through. The Storms, an even more dangerous force field for the Banes. Corrosive Bile's good, but Immortals, so far better. Zerglings cutting off reinforcements, but Adepts and Archons back in the main. Undercutting the economy yet again. The Storms slaughtering the Zerglings en masse. The Immortal count holding. The Corrosive Biles killed 2 or 3 of them off. But there's just not enough. It's been a delaying action for quite a while. And honestly, they kept it going for a lot longer than I thought. But at the end of the day, the result is the same. The Protoss are too much. Serral gonna use his last few units here. But it's not gonna be enough. They never teched past. Serral's trying to get a hive. Okay. Fighting till the bitter end. But bitter it is. Blunks forward. Storms coming through. Triggers Templar on the Banelings, and GG, the equalizer. Team Protoss with the double glaives into a mortal Adept timing, using that Archon mode very ironically. Somewhat ironically, I guess. Using Archon mode in order to maximize their effectiveness. Appreciate that. It's a lot harder to do with Zerg. I guess you could throw the Lings and Banes and let your teammate share control on them, but much more obvious when you have a massive Adepts. But Showtime and Trigger earning a strong victory there and exploiting the kind of separate bases that this. I think that's part of why they did the double probe block as well, to make sure the bases were as spread as possible, the defenses as spread as possible, and maximize the effectiveness of that sort of strategy. We'll see if they keep it up. We're going into reclamation. When the Zerg reclaim their place in the lead, or the firstborn, first to match point. Elazer again getting bullied, trying to buy time for Serral. Unfortunately, the tech tree got stunted so early. Ravagers are just not the force multiplier against double Protoss. Even still, getting dangerously close to turning it around, especially with Elazer. Zerglings just getting everywhere. I am loving Zergling, man. It has the supporting cast here. But hopefully you support this cast by smashing that like button. Maybe even subscribe. And uThermal as well, of course. I mean, putting the prize money where his mouth is. I believe he lost to Serral in earlier rounds for one, playing his own tournament, which is a little odd, but I mean, okay, not a little odd. Don't be unfair. uThermal probably the best 2v2 player in the tournament. We can just blame his teammate, whoever it was, as is customary. All right. Now they've shown that they could threaten it again. That's the thing about the Twilight Council. It's so ambiguous. Usually in 1v1, a Twilight Council is not the choice. We all know the Zerg versus Protoss build. I think even if you haven't played StarCraft 2 ever, you could probably give me a pretty good idea of what Zerg versus Protoss looks like in the current meta. Partially because of at least half the players in the game right now, but in general, Twilight Council just means you're open to a roach hog. And if the Adepts don't get damage done, or anything, it doesn't get damage done, the counterattack is usually deadly. Here, though, with one player kind of soft macroing behind and the other player focused on continually microing, you shore up a lot of those weaknesses in a way that a Stargate usually does in 1v1. Just make sure the counterattack can't be a thing while you keep pressure on. So, working out well, but this time we have the tech split. A Stargate for Showtime, and a Twilight Council for Trigger. Starting with Blink, much more macro-oriented. I'm not actually sure. As Zerg, you don't have as many options. It's less about what units you're building and more about how you use them. It's gonna have to be Zerglings and Roaches early. You literally have no other choice. And then, if you get to Lair, that's where we see something of a split. But I think Elazer is still gonna be Zergling man, and Serral will be picking whatever tech he can to complement it. But Zerg, the reactionary race, still the case here. Hopefully, I'm keeping up. It's different trying to keep up with 2v2, especially with the top players. I feel like I'm not sure how much of the strategies are planned out beforehand, because again, these teams didn't know who their teammate would be, but they've played a couple dozen matches of 2v2, so probably both teams have preferred strategies. Though I believe mirror matches were intentionally avoided as much as possible in the early stages, so even having both players, honestly, I kind of like. I prefer having a few of these. I would not like it all the time. That would just get into a 1v1 situation. But having two different flavors of each race. Metaphorically for Protoss, of course, so they don't understand flavor. Some might call them bland. Again, not Protoss. They don't have mouths. Overlord. Ooh, it's a Twilight! What? You can speak? Ooh. Check out Patreon. The Elazerlings. Driven back by the Blinkstalkers, a few Adepts mixed in. I like the Adepts mixed in because the threat is there now of those Adepts. An existential one. Did they see? Well, they saw the Oracles, obviously, with the Oracles overhead. The Stalkers moving forward. Serral now building roaches, but just has the Queens out in front. Called into action, as always. I think Elazer's going to be losing one of his hatcheries again. The Elazer hatchery death counter. It has to be in double digits by now. Another Overlord taking down the hatchery of formality. The Queen, Brenda! Oh, that was just Karen. Don't worry about it. Oracle's trying to be targeted, but the ramp... difficult to defend. The Blinkstalkers with the Oracles overhead and the threat of the Stasis at the back. The Protoss just diving through. Elazer does have +1 melee, but that Stasis could be a game ender. He has to know it's there. Gets a few of his Zerglings caught. The rest of them slaughtered by the Blinkstalkers. Now this becomes something of a force field. The hatchery finally goes down. Broodlings get involved. Serral holding the line for now. A couple of Adepts sneak in. Elazer will help deal with it. Brings the Zerglings back. Trigger moves around with the Blinkstalkers, and back at home, Showtime is back. It's got 64 probes. Trigger, on the other hand, is just now starting to build probes again. Up to 44, 46. Serral at 55 drones. So both Zergs clearly focused on crushing this as soon as possible. But the well-timed attack, the combination Oracle and Blinkstalker, just like in 1v1, very difficult to deal with when well executed. And the Foracles! Sorry. I mean, it was worth that level of drama, but it didn't kill them, so... I don't apologize, actually. Never. I'd like to retract my apology. Thank you. Oracles lancing through. But the Elazerlings finding a bunch of probes. Showtime dropping at least 10. Oracles into the main. Templar Archives. Things slow down. As Team Zerg has been able to drive things back, Serral rebuilding drones, Elazerlings. You don't need much economy to build mass Zergling. If you can rely on your teammate to build their economy and eventually tech up to where you need to be, and if you can't rely on Serral, who can you? Serral with a 4th base down the center. Elazer gonna lose another hatchery. Cancels it, but we'll count it. Is Roach speed done? Yes. Nothing else, though, in upgrades. Roach Hydra is the choice. Elazer gonna try to sneak in, but Showtime has some units on defense. Lurker Den is on the way. Hive Tech in production for Serral. Zergling sneaking by the right flank. They have to know. They can feel the Zergling sneaking by at this point, even if they don't see him. Or Prism again from Trigger. Showtime trying to establish the base, but somehow the Lings get by. Storm is done. The Zerglings. Oh, wow. The Zerg. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. He was microing the Prism. Trigger loses 3 Templar. There's no door. The Zerglings get into the natural. And Elazer again slipping through. Serral's at 200 supply. When did that happen? I feel like that's Serral in a nutshell, but Elazer doing such a great job of buying time and space for the world champion right now. Showtime and Trigger at 140 supply apiece. Elazer's doing his best. And as we just established, his best... Why is there one Ravager? I think he's sharing control? Yes. Elazer's highlight appeared there. He gave Elazer one... Here, go play with the Ravager when you run out of Zerg. Here's one Ravager to play with. It's something. Zerglings patrolling the main. Lurkers do not have range yet, but a fleet beacon is on the way for showtime. Once again, teching up. Trigger more focused on the ground army, of course. We already know the roles now. Zerglings in both third bases and pressuring the fourth. Trigger's army to the north. Showtime gonna be dueling with Serral to the south. Serral loses an outlying base, but the Zerglings have completely gutted Triggers. He's down to 56 probes. And Roaches coming around from Serral as well. Honestly, not a great part of the unit composition. Too many Roaches, and it's just making it harder to deal with the storms. Serral trading the Roaches away as he banks up money. Showtime not maxed out. Trigger actually supply blocked at 157 over 149. Again, a similar dynamic to Emerald City that we started things off, but the Protoss are slowly but surely working their way to 200 supply. And 400 supply of Protoss against 300 of Zerg is not the sort of equation that usually works well for our swarmy counterparts, but is Elazer sending out Zerglings again. Another battle group to the south. Zerglings intercepted by the army to the north. Stasis catches half of all the lurkers. The hard wall off here might be torn down. Elazer went high for adrenal glands and +3 attack, which I love. And it's working. Stasis will time out. It buys space. And the Stalkers have to be so careful here. If Serral can cut off one of the armies, well, that's best case scenario, obviously. Serral has to deal with two armies which are both designed to deal with lurkers simultaneously. But lurkers to the north are gonna take out one of Trigger's bases. And he still needs detection in order to contest. Showtime has 8 Immortals and 4 Tempests alongside 4 Oracles. More than enough revelation. Some Zerglings will help finish off the Nexus. Another Nidus to the left flank. It's shaping up to be another dramatic exchange, but it's unclear. The Protoss have the momentum, but Elazer keeps chipping away at it, and Serral has his lurkers, but the Warp Prism in the main, few charge lots, lurkers through the Nidus over to the left side. Good cut into Showtime's economy once again. The Templar, Storms, whoa, eviscerated through their fancy capes. Don't get a second set of Storms despite having near full energy. Elazer, I wonder if Serral's sending him money to build Corruptors. They don't need money, they need supply. That's the issue now, and Elazer has it. Serral has money, but no free supply. Elazer has free supply, but no money. Trade. It's not really trade, you just kind of hand money to each other, but for lack of a better term. Well, the Lurker Concave is slicing through. A lot of the Templar are taken out. The Storms only chipping away at the edges. Not able to melt through the most of the Lurkers. That was a sentence. Corruptors on top of the base. The Tempests don't kill them very quickly. The Storms would help, but a Elazer might be able to snipe off a Nexus. It's going to cost him most of the Corruptors, though. Was it worth it? The Corruptor is going to be slaughtered, but Serral's moving in with the Lurkers again. Down the center. Nidus to reinforce. Protoss supply starting to dip. Elazer creeping upwards, puns intended. And with Elazer microing Lings and Corruptors and looking for pickoffs, the perfect composition for him. While Serral, methodically, the floor is Lurkers right now. There's like 20 Lurkers, exactly 20 Lurkers on the field. Wow, nailed it. And more in production. Getting obliterated by Tempest. The Zerglings challenging the Stalkers. And honestly, I think the Zerglings in about equal numbers actually win. But here come Archons from the north. Some of the Lurkers taken down. Immortals blasting through. Corruptors coming up. Fight across the entire... The screen doesn't zoom out anymore. I'm sorry. This isn't beyond all reason. The Queens are congregating. The whole family get together. Elazer and Serral. The Queen's on probably Serral's Aki. Actually, I think it is Elazer, as he's transfusing all these units as well. Well, they're sharing control. You can't say, these are your units, you can control them. They share control of their entire army, for better or worse. That means if they try to control the same units, they'll just fight each other. And this is why Archon mode never worked out, because it just made 1v1. Well, if you had friends who you played Archon mode with, congratulations on losing your friends very quickly. That's all I have to say about that. And that's the struggle, especially with the Zerg armies and dealing with this. But Serral closing in. The trigger's down to 130 supply, equal with the Elazer. Serral's bank has been drained. I think a lot of it sent into those corruptors, but Elazer still with so many Zerglings. Lurkers to the left will get annihilated, but quite a thorn in the side of the Protoss, as another Nexus will be taken down the center. Trigger with his army kind of out of position to deal with this. We'll move in for a base trade, but there's Lurkers already here with some Spine Crawlers. A thorny defense. We'll move back to deal with it. Zerglings, more Lurkers. Where are the Corruptors? Where are the Corruptors? Down the center as well. Elazer breaking through with the Zerglings. Gets into both Naturals, killing probes all across the map. The Zerglings, the real heroes here. The Oracle's trying to grind through them, but it's just not quick enough. And Tempests are the definition of disproportionate response. This one Zergling has 9-10 kills. I think all of them probes. Trigger's down to barely more probes than he started with. 14. Have they done it? Well, they have to defeat the Showtime Armada. The final boss fight here is Showtime. And Trigger might not have probes, but he still has a very strong ground army. And he had enough gas to warp in like 8 High Templar simultaneously. The Templar, no! The Templar are caught, but there's more where that came from. He's trying to catch the Corruptors, but there's no reason for the Corruptors to even be involved here. Storms coating the Hydras. Cataclysmic Category 5 storms, but it's not enough to drive them back. The Corruptors are melting through the Nexus. The Lurkers are slicing through the Immortals and Archons. Showtime is left alone in utter darkness. But the combined forces of the Zerg may still not be enough to deal with the fully operational Death Ball. Showtime has +3, 1 on the ground, +1 shields, and +2 air. The Corruptors! Elazer wanders forward. The storms on the Corruptors. He's still going to kill several Tempests, but Elazer looking the other way for just a moment. A Nidus will be taken down to the main. But losing that many Corruptors, there's only a few Tempests left. Serral still has so many Lurkers. 14 Lurkers, 23 Hydras. What a game again. An Adept, 7 kills. Not that impressive compared to a 10 kill Zergling. Speaking of, well, okay, there's no math there. The Zerglings, how many have died? 600. And counting. The economies, it feels like we're getting close to a conclusion, but there's still some economy. Showtime still has 65 probes. Serral's at only 50 drones. The Lurkers are holding. The storms across the front line, though, will soften them up, and he'll be able to take them out. The Corruptor's looking for an angle, but there's just none there. The storms, a little off the mark. The Tempest could be intercepted by the Hydras. The Zerg's desperately trying to put together, slap together any sort of response. The Hydra's on the other side. The Templar looking for a storm on the ramp. How many Corruptors? 12 Corruptors, but then you have the ground army with 10 Immortals. Hydras, storms, oof, lunges away. Trying to come around the side. We'll intercept some of the reinforcing Tempests. The Queen's eating some storms. This is it. They're closing in. Serral using the transfuses. Elazer trying to swing in with the Corruptors to knock out the Tempest. Everything collapsing on both sides of the map. The economy gutted. The Tempest abandoned. The Corruptors will take them down. But who takes down the ground army? Is this a base trade? No. Well, 44 Zerglings and 4 Hydras in production for Serral, but a lot of them trickling out of the eggs into the Immortals. He's trying to draw out the storms. How many lurkers are left? 0. That's not very many. The drones will have to be pulled. But Showtime is still mining. He has cannons protecting the bases. Showtime, the wall may hold. The last fight. The Zerglings are getting... Whoa, whoa, whoa! The Zerglings are so good. The drone's helping. But there's another army to the north. There's still too many Zealots. There's still an Archon. There's not enough. The Zergs are cut down before Showtime's Protoss. Microing individual Hydras. Micros in and out of the Nidus. GG. One of the closest StarCraft 2 games that I have ever seen. Somehow coming down to the last fight 20 minutes in. And the fact that was only 20 minutes. I mean, when you have 2 players of this caliber on each team, I'm just adding more scale to it. They just couldn't beat the death ball. The corruptors were not enough. Well, they were enough. Arguably too much. The eternal struggle of having enough and not too much anti-air. And it's so hard to both get... So, here's another thing of handing the corruptors or handing money to Elazer. Is even if he can build corruptors, he can't afford broodlords. Like, you'd have to also get a greater spire. Which is another step, another bit of the economy on that sort of budget. It's so close, though. Team Protoss takes the lead, 2-1. I really thought they'd kind of walk through with that one. They had multiple 200 supply Protoss death balls. Somehow, Mass Zergling Nidus Lurker brought it to almost a full base trade. Elazer's Zergling control and timing has 100% kept the Zergs going throughout this. Somehow, well, it is that ability to focus on parts of the game that a lot of the time they don't get an opportunity to concentrate on. Like, you don't have to have the defense on both fronts, as well as macro, as well as the whole unit composition. And what's really cool is how clearly both teams are splitting, kind of delegating Archon mode style those forces. But the problem there was simply never being able to kill the death ball quite efficiently enough. Showtime taking advantage of Trigger as the frontline buffer. And making sure his life wasn't in vain. What a series. Now just finish him off with a cannon rush. Already too late for that. But this isn't regular ladder team games where Protoss means a 50-50 shot of cannon rush or carrier rush. And both times complaining about their teammate, even if they succeed, as long as they... If it doesn't succeed perfectly, complain. Even if it does succeed perfectly, but your teammate doesn't play the way you want, believe it or not, complain. All right? If it fails because you lost the probe to a single worker, complain. David Kim, all right? It's your fault. For so many things. Let me just take a breather for a second. This is, even for this caliber of players, this is like usually a top level match of like Clem versus Raynor. I'd say is at like 90% intensity for most of the game, for 95% of the game. This is like 95% intensity for like 90% of the game, but generally it's higher. Just because there's usually 2 to 3 separate fights happening alongside like a run by or a backstab or a warp in. So it's just another order of magnitude. Incredible to watch though, right? Need a breathe. Stay hydrated. Unless you're Protoss, in which case, I don't know, go out in the sun or something. They're plants. Okay. Double Oracle. Not even being rhetorical. Both players with the Stargate were on Crimson Research Lab. Beautiful map. With a ramp up to both the main and the natural. So I think this is why both Protoss players feeling comfortable. A blockade. The shield is just dramatic. It just makes it look cool. It's the same blockiness as a normal set of rocks, just to be clear. Does look amazing, though. Feels like it has a shield that you need to take down. Nah. It's priced in. Meanwhile, the double Oracle synchronized murder. Who's controlling him? Trigger, the micro player, throughout all this. The queens. Hey! This is restricted lair space by order of the Hatchery Owners Associate. My name is Brenda. Brenda, we said Lucille is making the announcements. Lucille? Yeah. Get out. You gotta say the thing. I don't care. Apathy is not a good look on you, Lucille. I don't care. Sorry, I blacked out for him. What is this? 5 oracles. The pentacles. Mass spore crawler though to deal with them. I love it. And I love how you can see the split as well with Trigger using, I think that's the pretentious looking skin. I don't remember which one it is. But the clear difference, besides the fact they're just a different color there, but a fleet beacon. This is a Tempest rush, a Mothership rush. We finally get our Mass Phoenix game, I think. Sorry. I was just making fun of the Protoss players who carrier rush and complain, but here we are. Carrier rush. My voice is going. I am losing it. After many years, I guess, of casting, I've kind of tuned my voice, such as this, to a certain level. I know, it's the best I got, okay? Sorry. You made it this far. Like and subscribe. But when that's how I was talking partially about the intensity level. When there's so much going on all the time, I can feel it more in my voice than in mentally. This job is hard, okay? It's a physical exertion. This is why I don't go outside. I have StarCraft games to cast. Like and subscribe. So I got him. I don't care. Lucille, shut up! There's more metaphorical. I don't care. Sorry, like and subscribe for Existential Dread. 3 carriers at a time. Some carrying being done. And this time it's going to be Trigger with the carry unit. Instead, Showtime focused on the ground army. He's got Templar Archives already researching Storm. I think they realized... Wait, did they spot it? Oh, yeah, an Overseer got in. So multiple Stargates. Stargate Command over here. What? You're just gonna attack with 2 carriers? Despite the cool skin, that doesn't mean they aren't just gonna die. They saw your... This is risky at best. There are 12 Corruptors on the way for Elazer, who's clearly taking the very hard counter method. If they don't recall the moment those Corruptors are spotted, it's going to be... Well, already just losing the Interceptors. The Corruptors are headed north. You lose the carrier. That's so bad. No. What are you doing? Well, this is like the only scenario that the carriers would actually survive. And this is covering for the ground-based attack. By far, our most macro-oriented game. as everyone has made it to 150 supply, give or take, without massive damage being dealt. But the Zerglings wrap around. The Templar will get grabbed and ripped to shreds, I say. And that's this is a disaster. Oh, wow. This is an absolute unmitigated disaster for the entire Protoss team. The carriers are slapped out of the sky by the corruptors. The oracles are knocked down. More carriers showing up, only to be put down in turn. Does this just end? The corruptors, a few cannons, a mothership, no! Time warp, not very helpful. There's so many cannons here. This is starting to get real costly, but Serral, of course, 9 minutes in, almost maxed out with lurker range. He has 91 drones and full hive tech online. Wow. Lurkers scampering north. The Protoss, so game 1, the Protoss trying something, worked out well. Game 4, wait, no, game 2. Couple games later, much more macro. You let the Zergs macro. You let Serral macro. Well, that active cloaking actually incredibly helpful here. But if the carrier count gets high enough, and there's enough storm, I mean, they're knocking down so many interceptors, though. Like, it feels like this is almost over before it started. This did not work at all. And unless Serral commits up a ramp into storm like 3 times, in which case I think we should do a wellness check instead of tapping out of the game, it's all but over. There's no recovering from this deficit of tech and this deficit of economy. Elazer has the corruptors overhead. The carriers are to the north, so the ground army and the air army being so split is dangerous for everyone involved. Oh, the Nexus wasn't taken out, which just makes it that much harder to replace, as it will be taken down as almost a formality. Trigger's supply blocked with his carriers above. 8 carriers, has plus 2-1 in the sky, but those mass carriers, they're getting there. There's 30 corruptors. Full Congress of corruptors, ready to knock everything in the general area out of the sky and maybe melt through a few bases as well. The acid, a hard counter, 2 bases in exposed positions. Storms, mothership, time warp. Looks very cool on this map. Night is coming through. Wow, there's Zerglings in the main. There's no night. He just ran in. Somehow a laser is killing a bunch of probes in the main base. The carrier count still high. Where did they... A single sentry for Guardian Shield obliterated. The corruptors. Well, this is one of the hardest Protoss unit compositions to dismantle. Unless you completely dismantle their economy first and they can barely afford to build interceptors. Like Elazer has already done with the Zerglings. He gets in. Trigger will lose his outlying base and his natural. He's down to just 1 mining base. I guess the main base. We're only 12 minutes in. How has this felt like a 25? I guess seeing mass carrier, mass corruptor feels like the game should be 30 minutes long. Especially when Serral's involved. But the Zerglings... leaking through. Oh, he's got Burrow as well. One of the surviving oracles. Ooh, a Apocalyptic storms. The queen's gonna come up, try to pull it all together, but the storms used on the Hydras means the corruptors just sweep the carriers out of the sky. Finally cleaning it up, and GG. All tied up. We're going to game number 5. They tried it. It didn't work. Okay. I applaud them for the attempt, but at the same time, quite a disaster for Team Protoss. Now remember, they did the same thing on Rohana, or the Adept Glaives map. That coordinated timing, and it looked amazing. So I can't blame them for trying. Like, whenever a 2v2 strategy fails, it looks even worse than in 1v1. And that was by far the biggest flop so far. Yep. That was technically a sentence. I just didn't like it at all. But I do like getting as many games as possible out of these players. For the final match of uThermal's 2v2 tournament playoffs in this match. I don't think it was the finals. It's not the finals. But a chance to get there. In the top right is Team Protoss, the Canadian. From Team Basilisk, it's Trigger, alongside Showtime from Germany. And then the Polish Zerg from Team Liquid, Elazer. And the finisher, also from Team Basilisk, it's Serral. Everybody pulling their weight. Everybody with their part to play. And it all comes down to this. Has already been one of my most favorite, possibly, like, so I don't know how we're gonna call it. I don't know what clickbait Jimmy came up with for this one. And I know if you see Serral, you're probably gonna watch. Most people do. Honestly, of the last year, of my like top 15 videos YouTube shows, about 9 of them have Serral. So yeah, I should be paying him royalties at this point, but I think he's okay. But it isn't 1v1. And honestly, I kind of wish that we mixed in a Terran here or there. Like, if they were confident enough to off-race or mix in a strategy. But just seeing the sheer strength of all the players kind of in a tug-of-war where they pick up the slack for their teammates in a way that would have just ended the game in 1v1, but instead creates this sort of back-and-forth situation. I gotta go back to how I hope, if nothing else, 2v2, maybe we can have some sort of dynamic gameplay. Maybe we can find a way to let teammates build on creep. Or let teammates warp in with your teammates' power field. Or say teammates 14 more times until the word ceases to have any meaning, like it already does for most StarCraft 2 players. So, make sure to support uThermal and his tournament efforts, which you guys already raised enough for a new season of these tournaments. So look out for that. Maybe I'll cast live. If this gets... let's be realistic. 11,000 views. 111,000. Then I will cast some of the next tournament live. I'll work it out with uThermal. Maybe cast with uThermal. Alright, and thank you, by the way. uThermal just sending me the replays to cast. Just shout out the chat. I mean, just look in the sidebar. Come on. It's probably there. Especially watching this. If you're not already subscribed, so... A Void Ray in production for Showtime. The coordinated... Actually, this time, both players controlling their own Adept. Interesting. A falling out, maybe, after that disaster piece of a game. No, just not focusing on the early aggression. And also, you kind of go into autopilot, I think, after a while. The fact that these teams have coordinated as much as they have throughout the last over an hour, I feel is almost as exhausting as playing the game itself. Maybe I'm just very tired and I keep projecting, but here we are. Overlord dies. Jimmy, edit that. 5 more gates on the way for Trigger. Showtime is covering for triggers all in with the Void Ray to deny scouting. And is it an all in? He's at 42 probes and he stopped building them. And is going up to 8 gates? 6 gates. Is that a wall? I guess so. Yeah, these teams starting to really work out what to do on the maps. The expansion pattern, continually putting a laser in front. I don't know if they can work out their spawn positions. I think that is randomized. So it just kind of works out that a laser is a little bit closer. I don't know what they would have done if that wasn't the case. Queens will send the knitting needles at the Void Ray until it's driven back. But here we go. Everything on the line. Best of one. One mistake from any one of these 4 players could decide it all instantly. In a blink, if you would. Elazer, 47 drones, Serral at 62. Both Protoss in the 40s. Though Showtime still macroing. Single Zergling. Queens come up. The Oracle's without much energy either. Some stasis at the back, but the Queens. Elazer with the mass Zergling. Queen assassinated. Another wave of Stalkers has warped in. The Queen's buffering the Zerglings. The critical mass of Protoss seems like it's there, but it seemed like that before. There's no +1 attack coming up for Elazer, which is a main difference. Void Ray also getting involved in the group activity. It's starting to crumble here. The Queens are running out of energy, and Elazer gonna lose another hatchery, as is customary. The Stalker's just gonna go right past it, but the Hydra's targets an Overlord. Doesn't actually kill it. The Ovi who lived. Possibly the turn of the tide. Of all the things, an Overlord was at like 1 HP. Elazer loses a hatchery, but he's already got an alternative up to the north side. Serral is going to 4 bases. He's just... Oh, the Spore Crawler may give away this base. I don't know. They don't know about it yet, but the Spore Crawler running off, I think, just gave it away. Meanwhile, though, the Stalkers blinking back at Elazer again, the punching bag. The Zerglings need to get in front right now. Every Hydra that dies is so important. The Zerglings, less so. Serral with the economy now. 66 drones, but Showtime has 69 probes, so looking very nice on the other side. The creep spread, sparse. Always a real struggle when your Queens are getting cut down on the front line. Stalkers blinking down to the south side. And Serral might end up losing a hatchery here. He's not able to move into position in time. The Stalkers just target firing. They're gonna commit. Blinks away. A couple will be caught. The Warp Prism will be the real prize. Serral at 150 supply. Both Protoss at only 100. And Elazer gets the Zerglings in. Oh, he left the wall. Oh, no. It's a disaster, but huge for the Zergs. Takes all the pressure off. The Stalkers recalled back, but he didn't even catch all of them. I think he even sniped off one of the Templar. Elazer has once again opened up the game in a way that was desperately needed. Serral's at 160 supply with Showtime 123, but Showtime losing a few probes. The Oracles are chasing the Zerglings, which means they're not at the front, but there's multiple stasis here. The Zerglings frozen out, multiple cannons. Storm is not yet done for Showtime, but it's only a few seconds out. The Stalker's going to be intercepted. More army to the right side. Warp Prism still intact. Storm is now completed, and he can storm from the high ground. The Hydra's not noticing it, and many of them just getting ripped apart by the Psionic Storm. But, again, the Zerglings slipping through and opening up an opportunity that the Zergs would not have had otherwise. The upgrades. +1 melee for Elazer, +1 ground attack for Showtime are. Trigger is at 44 probes. He's still just pumping out as many units as possible to get in front of Showtime's more high-tech army. Storms to the north, just Stalkers to the south, but there's not that many units. The Hydra's coming from the back, and the Warp Prism pulls back in time. The Stalker's starting to crumble. Templar, a couple more Storms already. Oracle's also getting involved. Storm not quite where it needs to be. Hydra's reinforcing. Zerglings sprinting back to defend. More Queens take it out. Elazer may lose a hatchery. But Hydra's coming in from an awkward rally point on either side. Serral at 160 supply, Showtime 133. Storm dances back. More storms. Bigger hit this time. More Zerglings coming through. Hydra's trying to snipe off the prism. They don't find it. Zealots cut down the Zerglings to the north. Showtime still powering through. And the war prisms from both sides warping in units. The double prism plays. Serral at 72 workers. Showtime at the exact same number. But Elazer struggling so much right now. The Queens, with their significant posteriors, getting in the way of all the Hydras, but definitely tanking a bunch of extra damage. Elazer desperately trying to put anything in front. Serral now has lurkers on the way. They've survived. But unable to counterattack and get the damage done. Serral coming down from the north side as well. Snipes off the prism, but the Hydras will be blocked upon in a prison of the Stalkers. Zerglings trying to sprint by, but I think they anticipated or spotted it. The lurkers have range completed. Serral 174 supply, but Showtime dangerously close. How is it still so close? Elazer still struggling to have any larva. Well, he actually has a lot of money. I think Serral just sent him some. Building some more Zerglings. Lurker's gonna try to defend. Zerglings chasing down the Stalkers. Not so good against the ankle butters themselves. A single lurk, but there's no detection here. Revelation will fix that quickly. 3 lurkers cut down. More coming up. Queens. Elazer loses a hatchery. Zerglings driven back to the north side. More Zerglings intercepted down the center. Showtime knocking out the outlying bases of Elazer, limiting the options for counterattack. Serral not at 200 supply. He doesn't have the economy. He needs to do something. He opts for the full-on counterattack. The ground-based Protoss closing in from either side, but without Storm, the lurkers are an existential threat. The Stalkers have to get away. The Queens! We've arrived! Well, the Queens out in front. The lurkers, only detection on one. Cuts down the, well, this single lurker could target down some of the Templar. The Oracle's out in front, tries to snipe one off, it's not enough. Serral 155, trigger at Elazer down under 100. That single lurker helping out, but it wasn't enough. Zergling counterattack, forces the recall to the north. Hydras, lurkers, and Zerglings, oh my. The Templar down the center. Storms could be helpful. Hydras, very hurtful. And now the Zerglings. Adrenal glands is on the way, but Elazer's down to 70 supply. Serral still somehow maintains enough economy to be in the supply lead of the entire match. But he's fighting, he's racing against the clock. He's racing against time. And Showtime is going to show him that it's time to stop the aggression. There's just too much Protoss now back at home. Through all the fire and fury on either side of the map. Serral losing lurkers down the center, losing a hatchery and drones to the right. And the fact they made it this far after that early attack is incredible. But the Protoss are closing in. Showtime, inevitable. The wall holds. Trigger continually rotating around to defend and buy him time. Serral, he needs to do so much. Elazer has a less and less Zerglings. Stasis. The frontline players helping out so... Serral still has 4 bases. But Showtime has 4 and 80 probes. He's warping in Templar by the half dozen. He's grabbing some of Serral's Zerglings alongside his army as well. That's how you know the select all army discipline is so good for everyone involved. The lurkers. 2 lurkers is not much, but everything behind it definitely could hurt a lot more. Elazer controlling the lurkers down the center. They've split their armies in twain, mostly Serral's. Storms, Hydras wade through. Lurkers at the back, eviscerate the Zealots. The last attempt to pull it all together. Will Showtime be able to break it apart? A great concave for the Hydras. Knocks down an Oracle. There's still one behind. Desperately needed. There's still one observer overhead. But the Zerglings get through into the base. Trigger and Elazer down to 100 supply. Lurkers down the center again. Are they... That's still so much Protoss. Serral has so few drones, that means his army supply is so high, but the Archons are closing in. He tries to slip away with the lurkers. Serral dips again, but the Zerglings are taking down a Nexus. Make that 2, make that 3. He recalls back on another one, but the lurkers are already on top of it. Serral 140, Showtime 170. The front line still adding as much as they can, making more lurkers back at home to defend. They've committed almost everything to the base trade. They need something to defend the base. Zealots out in front, Immortals bashing through, Archons behind. The last stand of the Zerg. Showtime still at 160, but he's lost the outlying bases. Trigger is barely mining at this point. The main base is mining out. The natural starting to dry up. Another base taken down. No cancel. Zerglings intercepting the Zealots. Elazer doing so much right now. He was popped over 1,000 APM, microing those Zerglings with a heartbeat the speed of a butterfly. Which I assume is very fast. A hummingbird? You got it. How is it still so close? This Protoss army should have powered through. It still very much could. And I would still say should, but with Serral and Elazer combined, but Trigger coming in, has Archons on the left, Immortals and Archons down the center, the Templar thinning out the Zerglings. But the Lurkers behind, who's flanking who? The final battle closing in from both sides. Power overwhelming, and the Protoss will clear the field and everything beneath it. The Archons and Immortals combined. The world champion and his trusty Zergling sidekick will be kicked out of the tournament. There's no recovering from this. Finally, they're able to pin them down, and finally able to knock them out. The Zerg kept sliding away and slipping through, but at the end of the day, the Protoss are too much. Trigger and Showtime will survive and claim victory in one of the best StarCraft 2 matches of any mode at any time with any players that I have ever seen. No apologies. GG. Wow. All but one game. That last game, it was so sad. Being unbelievably close. Just call an ambulance. But not for me. So many times over. The teamwork so readily apparent and clearly required. The give and take. But at the end of the day, the Protoss claim victory. Thank you, uThermal, for bringing us a scenario, making this happen. Make sure to check them out. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did, and I hope you'll allow a couple days for my voice to both emotionally and physically recover from this. I think it's going to be a bad one, but thank you for watching. I hope it made your day a little bit better. If you got the means and motivation, it'd be awesome to check out Patreon or YouTube membership, but your like and subscribing is still free, at least for now. I'll see you next time. Hope I made your day a little bit better. Good luck. Have fun. Thank you for watching. Stay chill.